Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to your Monday night F1 pit stop. I am the host, Martin, the Governor Lambert. Well, not the real host. The real host is Stephen Thompson, and he'll be joining us very shortly. For those that love a bit of Stephen Thompson and his pen, he has penned a new review show over at our website. Link is now coming into the chat. I thoroughly recommend you check it out. If you're listening back to this, because you can listen back to this on all good podcast platforms, just search F1 Fan Show Live. You can find the review of the French Grand Prix at thehgnetwork.com. I thoroughly recommend checking it out. If you do check it out, do let us know in the replies of whichever podcast platform you're listening to, or of course to the show on YouTube. We are available every Monday, but while the Euros are on, we are coming to you live today at 7:30, but normally at 7 p.m. just to slot in that hour gap. Don't forget, hit subscribe on YouTube. Join us. It is a fan show. You can come on and have your say live. Whatever you've got on your mind in regards to the F1, Hamilton, Verstappen, whatever it is, come on and have your say. It's live, it's interactive, and it is hosted by the absolute hero, the demigod. Stephen Thompson.
Afternoon.
How you doing?
Evening. Oh, well, how are you?
It's that vaccine, mate. You've had it.
I've had stage 1 of the vaccine, so I haven't got Wolverine claws just yet, but I'm hoping.
No? Any magnets sticking to your arm?
Not quite. I'm sort of expecting like an influx, just like halfway through the show, just ding. But,
yeah, absolutely. Well, we've already. You're obviously a rocker. You like your rock music. You're in a band, and we spent a good portion of the preamble. We're having a discussion offline before we go live, talking about which band, Steve. Was it Iron Maiden? Was it Ozzy Osbourne? Who have we been talking about, Steve?
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
I thought you meant okay, yeah. Yes, I've had a Bucks Fizz stuck in my head
Bucks
for months.
Fizz, and I don't know. That might be the most most unspoken about symptom of vaccine. I don't know. Could you?
No, this predates the vaccine. It's been in my head since about March, and every now and then it'll just creep in, and then it'll go again, and come back. It's awful.
Masters, I bet your 5G signal has improved though.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Pass it to Neil then, because Neil desperately needs it. Matt Stanner, I need some of my drivers to earn money. I have Haas and Schumacher. Don't. Yeah.
Ouch.
Although you've got some good fantasy news that you want to share to the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after a great race in Baku, where that really got me some decent points, I came back to work with a bump there. Charles Leclerc getting me -4 points. So hey. It was fairly decent, but I've dropped behind Neil in the standings now. Neil is now ahead of me.
Oh, let's see if he's positive about that tonight, shall we?
Yeah.
Wake up to the wake up to the money, turn me right on. You look like you got dressed with no lights on. A Superman that spin like a cyclone. Fit check spin like a cyclone. Wake up to the money, money turn me right on.
Yeah, but we're crap. We're not going to dominate any team.
Bottas is crap. He's not going to dominate any race.
Not there.
Here he is. Ben Moore, where's Neil tonight? Neil is right there on dodgy hamster spin and wheeled Wi-Fi. How are you doing, Neil?
I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm just having to use my own internet because I'm in a car park.
Shocking.
I'm out
But
working.
You're sounding good. It's a Monday night. Let's try and guess where Neil is tonight. Where do we think Neil is, Steve? He's not at home, that's for sure. There's not the fields of Suffolk behind him.
Well, yeah, he did message and say where he was. So I'm going to guess Maidstone.
You might be right.
You can
Is it
always
Maidstone?
guess where I was prior to that.
Crawley.
No, it was just further adrift. I was at Folkestone and
Folkestone and
Canterbury.
Victor. Beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful part of the world. You spent a few nights out there. Would you? Are you going to dump the van and go for a few beers in town?
No.
No.
I've got
Yeah.
far too much more work to do.
Oh dear. Ben says Peterborough. Neil, so you've jumped ahead of Steve in the F1 fantasy. You've got to be positive about that.
Get in there.
No, not happy with that.
No.
Not happy with that. Just 'cause
The
that
rival.
bad weekend from Charles, man. That was awful.
Heat your hands on the rivalry here. Look, boys, it's getting hot. It's getting heated. Talk about rivalries being heated. Talked about this race this week, Steve. Verstappen taking the win.
Mm.
Does that mean we're in for a much better race competition this year between Hamilton and Verstappen? And does that make Red Bull the team to beat moving forward, Steve?
I think so, because this weekend, I mean, we had a couple of good races in, Monaco and Baku. France is a very different circuit, those two. Very much a Mercedes-favoured circuit. I think coming into this race, Lewis Hamilton had led 105 out of the 106 laps there over the past couple of years, 2018, 2019. Obviously, there wasn't one last year. So very much a Mercedes-powered circuit. So for Red Bull to grab pole was fantastic. And then, yeah, they nailed the strategy in the race. They really did. You know, it's after Mercedes did a bit of a blunder with their strategy. And obviously Bottas, I'm sure we'll come on to that and what he said. But Red Bull absolutely nailed it. And fair play. They deserve that. And I think they are the team to beat.
Neil, Red Bull team to beat for you as well? Or do you disagree with Steve there?
It's hard to disagree. As Steve said, this Grand Prix just gone, that was one that the Mercedes have been brilliant at, and they were closer than they were the previous couple of races. But yeah, it shows that between their flexi wings and the extra power they've got from the engine, and just generally seeming to run less wing than the Mercedes do. So they must just have better balance through the corners to be able to run that lower wing. And they've been doing brilliant, and it's making for a good season.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and they're performing well, but team to beat, is that a little bit too strong at this point? Because, you know, Hamilton and the Arrows, they've consistently and constantly been winning to the point where you just can't write them off. So surely they are still the team that everybody needs to strive to beat. And if you beat them, you will be number one.
They're the benchmark. Definitely still the benchmark. You know, they've been dominant for so long. It's hard to say another team is better and stronger than Mercedes.
Until you get some consistent winning.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first time in the hybrid era that Red Bull have won 3 races on the trot. The last time they managed that would have been back in 2013. Sort of in the Vettel dominant era.
Who's strongest in Austria?
I would say that would be Red Bull again, because that's been a Red Bull track in the past. That seems to suit them quite well.
And we've got 2 of them on the trot.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So the coming races could be quite painful for Mercedes, for Hamilton, unless something extreme happens.
No, you want to be called the GOAT, you got to dig in and be the GOAT. And these are the times when you find the GOATs among us. Matt Stannard, do you feel both Merc drivers didn't put up much of a fight due to the hard tyre explosions last race?
I think that Hamilton put up a fight,
Mm.
but Bottas, he's always worn his tyres out more. So Mercedes know by now that he needs a different strategy, in which we can get on to later. But
Well, let's get on to it now. Let's have your bemoaning Bottas moment here, Steve. Although you did feel a bit sorry for him, I read on social media this weekend, which got me worried for you.
Oh, to be honest, I bemoaning Bottas, so we do that a lot, and I do love it. But I can't this weekend. I've got nothing against him this weekend because he had a chassis swap with Lewis before the weekend, so he was obviously using Hamilton's old car and Hamilton using his. And it seemed like instantly a good thing to do because you then had Bottas consistently quicker than Lewis through Friday. Obviously, that's not where the points are won. When it came to it on Saturday, he didn't quite have the pace that Lewis and Max did. And in the race, he was consistent, if unspectacular. He offered some good pressure to Verstappen in the early laps when Verstappen ran off at turn 1. And then he was on the radio saying that this needs to be a 2-stop race. And Mercedes just either chose to ignore him or just obviously thought he didn't know what he was talking about, left him out, and then he was made to pay the price for it. So he did nothing wrong for me this weekend.
But did he do anything right for you? Sorry, Neil, go on.
I believe the problem lies in the fact that Mercedes didn't want Bottas to challenge Hamilton. Because if Hamilton stayed out, done a 1-stopper, Bottas does a 2-stopper, he would have been pretty much like Max was, and it would have put Hamilton under serious pressure. And for whatever reason, they choose not to do that. If they do the same with both drivers.
Well, he said after the race, didn't he? He said, if I was on a 2-stop strategy, I could have been on the podium, I could have won that race. And he certainly would have been up there in a bit of a spanner in the works. But yeah, if you're Mercedes, what do you do then? Because you've now got someone else who can take points away from your number 1 driver. What do you do?
Well, what do you do? That's a good question. What would you do, Neil, if you were given the responsibility?
Well, it's easy to say. Well, straight off, you would like to get the win for your team. That's better than nothing. But I know what the feeling is where if I've done an F1 manager game and you've got your favourite driver out of the two and you're concentrating on them, and the other one, just do whatever you're going to do. Not that interested in them, but it's harsh on Bottas. He should have got a lot more out of the weekend, and it's on Mercedes, not him.
So are we now in that stage, Steve, where they are just sort of letting Valtteri do what he wants? And if so, does that mean they can say what they like about the driver, about the man, about the contract? It's done. His time in a Merc is done. It's over. It's now just a matter of when, not if.
I think yes. I mean, it seems if he can pull it together through the remainder of the season, which might not be easy if Mercedes are going to give him subpar strategies.
They're not letting him
on purpose or by accident. Who knows? If he suddenly does start performing, it just seems like it'll be a bit too little, too late. So look, I won that race. Well, yeah, but you have the opportunity to win plenty more. And we need you performing because in the races they're now in a position with Red Bull, in races where Verstappen isn't up there, Perez is going to be like Baku. But they, in races, again, similar to Baku, they needed Bottas up the front because Hamilton went off at turn 1, which was great. But Bottas was just way down the order. So they need him up the front for instances like that because now Red Bull have got 2 drivers that can consistently fight at the top. They need that from Bottas because this is going to be a very close fight and it could come down to the odd point or two. Who knows?
Is that the main reason why they have pretty much acted as if they've had enough of him? Because there's a lot of weekends out there where he just isn't in the position he needs to be. He's not getting the points. He's actually behind Lando Norris, isn't he?
Norris is 4th, Bottas is 5th.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. But so you think, if he got the win, that's potentially taking points away from Hamilton, who's in a position constantly, week in, week out. So it's just strange, really, isn't it?
Lots to watch over the coming weeks. Ben Moore, Russell again performing well. Call up to the big boys incoming. Neil, I think Steve's got blinkers on with Russell. Is Ben correct there? How did you rate Russell's drive this weekend out of 10? And what do you make of Ben there?
Well, I started to believe Ocon was going to get the seat with how things were going at the start of the season. But now he's signed up to Alpine. There can only be one man. And
Is it going to happen this year?
I think it's inevitable.
Okay.
The way also Bottas, some of his performances are really, really bad, and like how Vettel was at the end of his reign at Ferrari, and it's just got that feel about it. And as for Russell, he's missed a Saturday for me. He doesn't quite do enough on a Sunday.
When's race day?
Sunday, man. Come on.
No, I know. I'm just being facetious and asking because if he's missed a Saturday, it means he's not done the job on Sunday, Steve.
He was 12th yesterday. I mean, he's had some bad issues in the past, and that incident with Bottas in Imola. But yesterday was brilliant because he finished 12th on merit in that awful car. He was fighting on with genuine pace with the likes of Giovinazzi, the drivers around him, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He finished ahead of a Ferrari, which is brilliant. When was the last time a Williams finished ahead of a Ferrari on merit? Without any retirements, without any safety car strategies being thrown into the mix, anything like that. So
I guess it would involve Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, you're probably going back quite a long time. I think maybe 2024. It's got to be between 2014 and 2016. The last time they actually had a genuine race with Ferrari. But it was so good to see. And yeah, he's been missed a Saturday because where he gets his pace from on a Saturday in that car, I have no idea. But more often than not, because that car is so bad, it just drops back on race pace. But yesterday, he did everything right. He kept his nose clean, kept it under the radar, drove fast.
He did. Someone who didn't have a great weekend overall was Ferrari. Neil, what happened with Ferraris this weekend? Because it really upset Steve. Charles Leclerc really cost him, what, -3 was it in the end, Steve?
-4 on the F1 Fantasy.
Sorry. I've robbed you a point.
Well, I have science, so he might have lost me something as well.
No,
what's going on?
He got you plus points.
What's going on? Because we were talking about, a fortnight ago, my last show before my illness, how good they were going, and then we're making strides. And
yeah, they were, and they still have. For whatever, through practice, through qualifying, excellent. Start of the race, fine. For whatever reason, did they switch onto the hard tyres, and they just didn't work. And on Ted's notebook, they said that Ferrari had tyre troubles, so it's all linked with that really. And they just had no pace, whether they were graining up or what they were doing. They were just so far off the pace. But it's just this race really. I think they'll be back again in Austria. They showed the pace in single lap and that sort of thing, so they're there and thereabouts. McLaren haven't got it easy yet.
The good thing with coming to Austria is it's a very short lap. So if your one lap pace is good, all you've got to do is nail that quick lap in qualifying and then make your car as wide as you can in the race. And hope that there's rain or safety cars or whatever it may be. Because what they got a podium there, didn't they, last year with Charles in what was a terrible car. So yeah, I'm confident they'll get back on the pace, but I just think McLaren are getting better and better, and Richardo is now finding his feet. He's starting to look more confident.
Well, yeah, which is good news. We had that on the list as well, to taking that off. Who is pushing for Ferraris the most at the moment, do you feel? Outside of McLaren, I mean, you got Lando Norris, and he did some great things earlier in the year. But who's coming from maybe midfield at this point of the season that you've seen enough of now to sort of quietly, confidently do an Alan Shearer and say they're your turkey dark horses before falling flat on your face?
For me, I'll probably say AlphaTauri.
Okay, why?
Pierre Gasly. He has been amazing this year. He's one of, if not my top driver of the season. Obviously George, but of course, need I say anything else? But no, Pierre Gasly, it's got to be, because that, I mean, I know he's I know he's against Tsunoda, who is still finding his feet, and he's making some silly errors. But Gasly has really rediscovered his form. The form that got him promoted to Red Bull in the first place a couple of years back. And I think he's doing an amazing job.
Neil, you've heard Steve's argument there. Do you first agree with that he's done an amazing job?
There's only one problem with that. I fully agree with him. I wouldn't say he has been my favourite driver in the world, but he has driven very, very well since he left Red Bull. And but the problem is that's the thing. He's been told is never getting back into the main seat. So he needs to basically end his contract with Red Bull and find his own way, because he's driving well enough to get a good seat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he needs to get himself manufacturer backing.
Because I believed with something I'd heard that Alpine wanted a French driver, because that's where I believed Ocon would get the call up to Mercedes, so Gasly would move to Alpine. But yeah, that's all been shot in the dark, apart from unless Alonso is pushed aside, which I can't see happening anytime soon.
Alonso will still be on the grid next year for Alpine. I think sampling the new cars, and then maybe call next year his last year. I don't know. He's not a young guy anymore. I was getting a little bit nervous with the Russell Mercedes thing, because there's rumours about Ocon being in the running for it. Toto Wolff is his manager. And there was obviously that incident between Bottas and Russell in Imola, which, if you're trying to go for a job somewhere, don't start hitting the employees. I mean, it's not. The whole thing wasn't just entirely Russell's fault. I think there was blame on both sides. But I know Wolff and Russell had words afterwards, and then all this stuff about Ocon starts surfacing. And then it's good to see that Ocon had signed a long-term deal at Alpine. It keeps him in a drive for Alpine, keep a French driver. Russell then becomes back in. If he ever wasn't in pole position for the Mercedes seat, he's definitely back in it again now. But it's got to have hurt Pierre Gasly, because surely he would have had his eye on one of those seats, French driver, French team. And Ocon's there now until 2024, I think.
Yes, he is. Interesting. So I've never experienced it really as a fan, so it's all quite sort of musical cherry, and it's like part of the game within the game is watching the drivers perform, obviously, but where they're going to go, what's opening up.
It's called silly season.
Yeah,
it's usually called that for a reason.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I really do, and I didn't really get the answer from you, Neil, in regards to your mid-table team coming through on the outside as a dark horse that you're quite prepared to sit here today and say, do you know what? I'd keep my eyes on. We heard Steve there say the AlphaTauri. Is that right? That was right, wasn't it, Steve? Mm-hmm. So who so far have you seen enough of that you could say, yeah, dark horses?
Well, we were expecting it earlier on, but Aston Martin hadn't really been anywhere. But Vettel's quietly going about his work and improving of late, so I think he would have to be my choice.
Okay, love it. Do you know what? We've got through a show, Steve, and his phone hasn't overheated. Do you know how rare that is? Because like match day ticket night,
every night,
musical chairs. He was doing one man carry.
Don't over talk it.
I know. Well, we're closing up now. Don't worry. Don't worry. But where are we head? Go on, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say the midfield battle this year is the best midfield battle I can remember for a long time, because you've got the likes of AlphaTauri, you've got obviously McLaren and Ferrari sort of maybe a little bit ahead of that midfield, but there's teams right behind them who can take a good result, like we saw in Baku, if unexpected things happen. So you've got AlphaTauri, Aston Martin are looking really good now. Alpine, Alonso seems more comfortable in that car. And even teams that sort of haven't quite broken into that top 10 yet, but are almost there. You've got Alfa Romeo, and then at the back you've got Williams and Haas. But
is it the first year in a while that you can remember that sort of thing, that many intriguing storylines in the midfield battle?
I think yes, because up and down the grid, I mean, for the past few years, it's been okay. So Mercedes are going to run away with it, have two drivers on the podium, and then Red Bull or Ferrari might nick that third spot. This time, there you go. this time he agrees. Who knows what's going to happen because the two Red Bull drivers look stronger than Bottas. Hamilton doesn't quite seem, I don't want to say as hungry, but he's making more mistakes than we've seen in the past. Very un-Hamilton-like. But yeah, further back, you've got this incredible battle, which is so intriguing to watch because one week is going to be AlphaTauri who are fighting up there, then it could be Alpine, it could be anyone apart from Williams and Haas. So it's decent.
I want to unpack that in a week when we haven't got a race because the Hamilton sort of thing you've just thrown up there is really interesting. Obviously, you had that contract dispute at the start of the year. Now you're sort of saying what you've just said there. There's a lot to sort of talk about as to what could be causing it that we feel personally. Because there's, contract year or contract negotiations, and it is still a contract year, I suppose, for him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, really interesting stuff there.
Hamilton is quite a confusing guy because he's a phenomenal driver. And I would have thought, because he's not the GOAT, but you can't say that, Martin. Come on. You can't say who the GOAT is. Ben Moore said it in a comment down there. It's Pastor Maldonado. We all know that. The last man to win a race for Williams, 2012.
God. If he's the GOAT, then we've all had
give up. It's all packed up
it's not,
now.
Stop
it's not
Formula
worth
1.
being the GOAT.
We'll all go to Formula E. Sorry, Formula E podcast next week. But he's an intriguing guy because these contract talks with Mercedes were going on for so long, for months. People are going, is he going to be on the grid in 2021? Because usually it's wrapped up by now because you'd have thought that a guy with his stats, you'd want to snap him up. And then when it finally got sorted, it's only a 1-year deal. Okay, so what's going on sort of behind closed doors? You don't really know what's going on in his head. And then we spoke about them in previous podcasts after preseason testing, these slight rule tweaks, and the Mercedes not looking as good, and Hamilton making some uncharacteristic spins.
Him wanting, or his agent wanting too much money? Because I think this new contract being negotiated, he's accepting a severe slash of his salary. It's being replaced in bonuses.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a poor man out of it. But
I think it is. And whether they had one eye on the future as well, because you've got, like the likes of George Russell. I mean, back then, obviously, you had Esteban Ocon before this Alpine deal. You've got these really incredibly talented young guys making their way into Formula One and obviously working their way up the teams as well. And Hamilton's not a young guy anymore. And Russell will probably relish that drive in the Mercedes for a fraction of the price that Hamilton would demand, obviously, with his stature. But it's been an uncharacteristic season for him because there's been some costly errors, especially in Baku, some spins, and he's just not seemed...
Well, they weren't his errors. He was quite clear. When asked, are there things for him to learn, he said quite clearly, there are things for the team to learn, yes. For me, no.
The spins, maybe, although they're not, sort of pre-season testing, the Mercedes, they were still getting used to having to run that higher rake. I mean, Red Bull have had years doing it. Mercedes are now started to, and they're learning. But catching that switch, the magic switch in Baku, that was his error. And he's just, I don't know, he doesn't seem as with it this year for me.
This is the first season that Mercedes have really been put under pressure again. And I think they're showing signs of being rusty.
Yeah, they've only ever had to deal with two guys who can win this race. Or it's going to be us, or it's going to be Lewis or Valtteri, or Lewis and Nico. And now it's okay. So we've now actually got to deal with the Red Bulls as well, and potentially teams like Ferrari and McLaren if they get their act up and if they're on pace. And yeah, they've had some costly strategy errors. And it's like they're out of practice with actually having to
be pushed.
To be pushed. Yeah,
it can happen when you reach the summit, and for a consistent while, you can forget what it's like to be pushed, and then you need a push to re-galvanize. And let's see where it goes. Lots of things moving at the hours as we head forward. Right, where are we next, Steve?
We are in Austria. We've got another 2 races in 2 weeks, which is awesome. Triple header. I love it.
Beautiful.
We are in Austria in the beautiful Styrian Mountains at the appropriately named Red Bull Ring.
Oh,
because it's owned by Red Bull.
And will it be a Red Bull double? Let's wait and find out. We're back
Mm.
next Monday at the earlier time of 7 p.m.
Mhm.
while the Euros are on, just because they feature games at 8. But Neil, you've made it through. The internet was probably better than you've ever had it before. Your phone hasn't overheated. And Steve, lead us out.
Thank you very much for watching. Love all the comments. Great to see it. Great to have a chat there as well. Ben Moore, you are. I'm just in it. Yeah, 7th in the F1 fantasy, but I'll catch up. I'll get you. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for getting involved, and we'll see you next week after what has hopefully been a very exciting Austrian Grand Prix at 7 p.m.
Yep. And here's Head Rush. No, right. Rush Head. What are they called?
Escaping today.
Music is my therapy. It puts my anxious thoughts to sleep. Music is my therapy. It puts my anxious thoughts to sleep. Helps me focus my attention.